everyone, and welcome to another Scots Whay Hae podcast. And today I'm joined once again by Don Taylor, who is the Artistic Director and CEO at Manipulate Arts, to talk all about this year's Manipulate Festival, which is on between February the 4th and the 10th. Hello, Don.
Hi, Alistair. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to see you again. We were saying before we started recording, this is when the year feels like it's starting to really get going when you and I have a chat about Manipulate. But for those who don't know, can you tell us about the festival and a wee bit about its history?
Sure. So we will be entering our 19th edition in February, and we are Scotland's international celebration of visually led performance and film. So that means visual theatre, puppetry, and animation.
And so it's going for, is this the 19th year straight, or is it, have there been breaks in that time?
19 years straight, no breaks during COVID. We've just ploughed ahead for 19 years.
That's really, it's really impressive. And I guess you're going to say yes to this, but is this, the biggest yet? Is this the most ambitious festival yet?
It's funny you ask that because we use that language and then I often think, oh, how to quantify it? Biggest,
Yeah.
most ambitious. But I think that well, certainly it's a growth from last year because last year we had to scale back a bit for all sorts of reasons. We were focusing more on artist development and homegrown work. So it's amazing to return to a full international edition. But I do think one thing is that we're continuing to expand our view so as to kind of keep um, emphasizing the point that this work is for everybody. So the size of the stage expands as our kind of our vision grows. And we've been really trying to, I guess, bring together some of the different strands of what the organisation has done for a long time. So looking at community engagement, looking at talent development, and then of course this big ambition on the international stage in Scotland's festival city. So yeah, I think that definitely in terms of ambition and in terms of the kind of scale of some of our projects, we're really continuing to grow.
Well, we'll look at some of the strands there because you say, having read the programme, there is a big international aspect to it, but you've kept that local and community feel too. So what about this year's programme? Can you take us through it a bit? It's quite an extensive one, I do understand. So if you can give us just maybe the strands, that might be a way to do it.
Yeah, so I guess on that headline, that was very much about, sometimes there's this preconception, I think, in arts organisations that like our community engagement works over here or the
Yeah.
kind of local bit for local people's there and then we'll do this. And I think we were just trying to smash that all up and say, like, how do we have this conversation that is truly global while also talking about the people of Edinburgh? And so we have 10 performance works, five from around the world and five new premieres from Scotland. And we have a whole programme of film, including shorts and features, which is taking place for the first time at Film House in Edinburgh, which is
Oh,
really
wow.
exciting. But will also take place in libraries and community contexts around the city. And then we have our usual suite of talent development activities, so workshops for professional artists and also talks and sector-facing discussions. And then finally, there's this kind of more site-specific element this year, which we've brought in a little of before, but we're really sort of starting to grow. So working with the National Museum of Scotland for the first time to bring pop-up performances there, and then also just into the city streets with giant inflatable puppets, working with in partnership with community members in the city. So all feels like there's plenty to do.
So, I mean, we've spoken about this before, but it really is kind of all over the city. You're using all sorts of different, and it sounds like really expanding, using Film House and the museum as well. Sounds really interesting.
Yeah, and we're also working with Lyra for the first time and kind of looking at being outside of the city centre. And I wouldn't want to convey a kind of expansionist mindset that we're trying to like go for world domination. It's more just that like if a festival is to truly serve the city and serve its people, then we need to encounter people in different contexts where they are, and whether that's in the street or in the museum or whether that's in a venue in the centre or outside of it. And that's very much what we've been trying to do.
So, I mean, you've mentioned some of the venues. I guess where will people be able to find out more about the festival and where events are on and get tickets?
Now, this is the bit every year where for some reason I forget the web address of our own organization. It's like phone numbers that just won't go in.
Yeah.
So our web address is manipulatearts.co.uk and everything is there, the full program listing and the schedule. And it's important because the tickets are booked through lots of different box offices. So that website is the central place where you can get all the information about how to book, where things are, etc.
And is it, with all these different venues, is it important people get tickets before they go, or are there places that they can just kind of rock up and see if they can get in?
So the vast majority of events are ticketed, and every year the vast majority of events sell out. So
Yeah.
I definitely recommend buying in advance. However, as part of that aim to kind of expand access to the festival and meet people in different places, we do have some free events this year, and most of them are sort of rock up. So that would be the things in the National Museum and the things in the street. Everything else, I'd recommend checking it out in advance to get a ticket.
And just to add on where people can find you, I guess you're on social media as well. They can find you.
Yeah, we're all across all socials, and um, yeah, and all of that is linked through the website as well. So you can find us everywhere.
Excellent. And you talked about the kind of community aspect of it and workshops. So how can people get involved in that? Is that also if they go to the website they can find out about it?
So in terms of the community aspect, so the workshops are for professional artists
Okay.
primarily, although we do have youth and family engagement workshops in stop motion animation taking place in libraries across Edinburgh. All of that information is on our website, and people can book and show up to those. In terms of participating, so we have uh, this wonderful work coming up from down south by an artist called Tim Davies, which is a big 7 by 5 meter, eight-way articulated, inflatable, illuminated octopus puppet, which if you're a
Wow.
puppetry dork, you will see that the mechanics involved in it are something really special. To manage to manipulate 8 different legs at the same time on one person's kind of backpack puppet. If you're not a puppetry dork, it's still just this wonderful spectacle. And so we have young people who we've been working with over a series of weeks from Wester Hales in partnership with Whale Arts, who will be interacting with the puppet with their own inflatable costumes. So that kind of layer of participation is more based on kind of existing partnerships. But if
Yeah.
people want to come along and participate, there will be ways to get involved, particularly at the National Museum. There's workshops for kids looking at Edinburgh's identity as a marine kind of coastal city. Um, and yeah, otherwise, it's show up, enjoy the performances.
And am I right in saying there's a competition this year?
There is. Yes, for the first time. We're very excited. So we have been historically as an animation festival, a curated festival only. So that means that rather than receiving submissions of people who'd like to show their films, we go out and find the films. It's a kind of an important difference because then they become an in-competition program or out of competition. And we've just never had the resources to sort of review properly the volume of submissions we might get from all around the world, which takes a lot of film festivals kind of time and energy. We want to be able to do that right. So for the first time this year, we opened out for submissions, but only from Scottish artists.
Right.
And it's important because there aren't a huge number of dedicated moments to celebrate animation talent. Awards and these things, they matter because they allow us to tell the stories of the brilliant work that's happening here in Scotland. And it's kind of kudos and recognition within the wider sector, especially in a sector whereby live action filmmaking can kind of feel dominant
Yeah.
to animation. And some of the other animation support schemes that have existed in Scotland have been dormant or have disappeared. So introducing this, it feels like a really important moment. We're looking at 10 films that are some of the most exciting work made in Scotland over the last 3 years. And we're working in partnership with Glasgow Film and Move Summit to award a prize to one of them.
I mean, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but do you feel that animation is often overlooked?
I do, and I think that that's true of a lot of our art forms actually, because we operate in a culture which favors text-based drama
Yes.
and live action filmmaking. There's all these big like film studios now in Scotland. The government in Screen Scotland has done a lot to encourage people to come and film their productions, their big budget Hollywood productions in Scotland, and that is amazing. But it can mean disciplines like animation kind of feel forgotten, I think, sometimes in that world. Yet there have been amazing advances in animation in the last few years, and adult animation particularly has been growing and growing. So yeah, we're here to shout about it and make sure that these artists are seen for the amazing contribution they make to Scotland's cultural life.
And let's talk about some of the other strands as well. You've talked about puppetry dorks, and there are people who are very much enthusiasts about puppetry itself. But I think when you say it's puppetry, some people might have a singular idea of what that means, almost going back to the old Punch and Judy shows or something like that. But it's a wide undertaking, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a big world in
Yeah,
terms of puppetry. The word, people get a preconception. As you say, they imagine things in their mind. There's a lot of ideas that it's a children's art form. There's also a lot of people who tell you they feel a bit unsettled by puppets, or there's an uncanny valley thing
yes,
where it's almost human but not quite. And actually, when we say puppetry, we mean such a wide range of disciplines. And this is where if there's any puppeteers watching, I'll kind of be slated. But this is where I often kind of find an object to animate and say a puppet can be anything. It can be this little pair of scissors that suddenly becomes a creature, and someone much more skilled than me, who's actually a puppeteer, would make it come to life
yeah.
in a way that sheds new light, makes you relate to the world in a slightly different way. It plays with scale, plays with form, and so I think we really, really have a long-term mission to start to break down those preconceptions about what puppetry, what any of these art forms mean. And my personal claim to fame is that, on this, not really claim to fame, but a triumph, I guess, is that especially with staff members or partner venues or organizations that we work with, people who are quite new to puppetry but love the arts, and they come in and they're like, I'm not really sure about puppetry. And they always leave working with us having taken puppetry into their heart a
Yeah.
little bit. And one particular staff member who came in and sort of said, I'm not sure about puppetry, but I love the other work you do, had puppets at her wedding featuring quite a prominent role
Wow.
because she had become a puppet person. So I feel like it's the lure is irresistible once you kind of get into it.
I guess it's the kind of you're talking the uncanny thing. It's something which is inanimate being brought to life. There is something about that which could be seen as unsettling, but is also magical as well if you can get
Yes.
into it. It's probably why it often appeals to children. But it seems to me with a lot of what Manipulate does, it's asking people to come along and almost make contact with what kind of the people found magical in the first place.
Yeah, and I think it is really about perspective as well. Puppetry, I mean, there's a fantastic performance in the new premiere of a Scottish work in the festival called Size Matters by Mamoru Iraguchi and Vanishing Point Theatre. And the whole object of the work, I guess, is a philosophical puppetry work that asks us to consider scale and size and our relationship with things through the lens of a human's relationship with a puppet.
Mm.
And I think actually that question about the scale and perspective and what matters and how do we convey a sense of importance to things is actually part of what's so special about puppetry and why it can be used and animation as a way to bring perspective on some of the biggest issues that can kind of occupy us as human beings. Because if we take this issue that concerns this object and then we orient it in relationship to this other thing, it can help us ask questions about where we stand in relation to different elements of human life, of public life. You can go from being at an absolutely micro scale, looking at things at a cellular level, to the biggest macro scale where suddenly we're looking at stars and planets and puppets of different sizes and objects of different scales can help us to do that. And so I think it can help us ask questions which, sticking at the purely human scale of Dawn and Alistair in a play with
Yeah.
human-sized cups of tea, can by definition not do.
Yeah. Um, I was wondering, I mean, you've mentioned a couple of the performances there. Are there other highlights, perhaps I think you've said you've got five new international pieces and five new Scottish pieces. Is that right?
Yeah, the international pieces aren't new, so
Right.
a
Okay.
lot of them have been the very best sort of highlights of the
Right.
global puppetry world. And the Scottish work, they're all new. So four of them are world premieres at
Right.
Manipulate, and one will open in London later this month and then come to us. So they're all brand new in
Yeah.
The Scottish work. In terms of highlights across both programs, it's always so hard.
I know.
We've really focused this year on trying to build the most eclectic mix possible so that no matter what your taste is, there's something in there for you. If you like light entertainment or something that's really going to push and challenge you thematically or something that will play with form in a way that you haven't encountered before. And we always like to say that you can see something at Manipulate Festival that will be something you've never seen on stage before.
Mhm.
Um, with that in mind, I guess a couple of things I'd mention. We have a new show by Sadiq Ali, who's an Edinburgh-based circus artist and theatre maker. Sadiq's first show, The Chosen Haram, premiered with us in 2022. And his new show, Tell Me, is a three-hander in this beautiful kind of bespoke new piece of circus apparatus. So Sadiq is a Chinese pole artist, and
Right.
he's created these three cubes that all kind of interweave inside each other and can all move. And they kind of are all kind of manipulated and kind of uh, performed on at the same time. So this is really visually and technically a very stunning show, but it is about living with difficult news or like an uncomfortable truth in your life, and then how you share that with your community when it's a hard thing to share, and then the solidarity that comes back. Um, Hopefully, as a result of that, and specifically through the lens of two characters at different points in time receiving an HIV diagnosis and kind of what that means for them in their journey. It's going to be a gorgeous piece of work, and Sadiq is a really considered artist. Um, and then I guess also in the Scottish work, I'd highlight Anti-Empire, which is a new piece of work from Disaster Plan. So it's led by Julia Todevin, and Disaster Plan is Julia's company with Kieran Hurley. And Anti-Empire is a bouffon piece. It's going to be grotesque and hilarious, and it's really looking at this notion of British Empire. And I think what's special about this work is. We often in Scotland, I think, look at empire as this English thing. It's over there. They're the problem. And so there is that, and there's that in spades, but it also looks at Scotland's complicity and Scotland's complex relationship with empire. And it does it all in a very non-verbal, very dark and hilarious way. So I think it's going to be great fun. And then maybe on the international side, um, there's a piece which I only had 9 pieces of work in the programme when I went off to with our producer Katie and our associate producer Cadence. We went off to Charleville Festival in September, which is the world's biggest puppetry festival. We knew we needed to find one more piece. And I told our production manager, I'm going to come back with something self-contained and small, and it's going to be maybe like object theatre, fit in 2 suitcases, no problem. And what I came back with was this huge Trav One show with 2 Latvian men chopping wood to bits for 80 minutes. And it really
Wow.
is 80 minutes of like woodwork, which sounds mind-numbingly dull, but it is spellbinding. It is about our relationship with nature.
Mhm.
It's about our desire to dominate and control nature, and about our relationship with the kind of the world and how we make and remake it. But something magical happens halfway through, and suddenly there's a vulnerability in amongst all the machismo, which is just this wonderful pivot, which I won't tell you what it is.
No,
And
no,
so,
no.
yeah, it's a really different piece of work, and I'm excited to see how British audiences take it because it's much less narratively driven, I think, than some of the other work.
So
Um,
I'd never thought about before, but how important is music to the festival? Is there a lot of live music that goes along with puppetry, or and I guess some shows will and some shows won't, but is it that quite an important aspect?
It completely varies show to show. So I personally am a huge fan of bringing different art forms together and of live music on stage. But you sort of have to respond to the work that's out there in the time. So we have a great one this year with a Czech piece called Car, which is a very, very, very loose adaptation of Anna Karenina. This
Okay.
work has taken the international puppetry world by storm over the last few years, and is a Czech folk klezmer Baltic kind of band. They fuse lots of different Central Eastern European folk styles, with this kind of like party rockish kind of style. And the band Fiketa Sertlik is at the heart of the piece, and then there's object theatre, and there's vodka flowing, and there's candles burning, and I maybe shouldn't say this in case any of the venue partners are listening, but Maticha, the lead artist, did actually set his hair on fire when I saw the show in Montreal. So there's anarchy in the best way.
Yeah. I was going to say vodka and fire is probably not the best combination, but
Well, the British regulations around what you can do on stage are not always very welcome to some of our visiting companies because they also smoke a lot on stage, and of course you just cannot. So it's against the law in Scotland. So there's just been that like logistical sort of loophole of how do we get around that. But I think they found a creative solution. And then the band, Fikita Start, like will be performing at our big festival party on Friday night, and can't recommend it enough. They're great fun.
with the festival kind of getting closer and closer, is this an incredibly stressful time for you? I mean, you've mentioned kind of all these different acts that you're bringing in, some from all sorts of different places, and also various venues as well. Often with festivals, it's just a few venues. You can jump between a few, but how is it for you in the lead up to a festival?
Do you know what, Alistair? It's not because the team here are so amazing. We're so fortunate that we got our uplift in the Creative Scotland's multi-year funding, which is a lifeline, last January. And so we've been able to hire this fantastic team, Katie and Kira and Matt. They're just on it. So I'm able to have lovely conversations like this. I mean, obviously it's our busiest time of year, but everyone's making it happen. And then, once we've got the festival out the way in February, we just get to attend other people's festivals for the rest of the year and watch them having their stressful moment.
I
And
was going to ask you, when you start thinking about next year's program, is it just a kind of constant
yeah,
conversation?
it's constant. And for that reason, we are slightly going to be reviewing the model, which there's only so much I can say about just now, but we've been really looking deeply at a model that best serves artists as well as audiences and kind of the international sector. But as it stands, it's really an 18-month lead in, I would say. So I had my first major program meetings about even 2028 this week.
Right. Okay.
Um, so it can be as much as 2 years because some of the more complex productions and partnerships, it just takes a really long time.
And I mean, you mentioned going abroad. Is that a big part of what you do to kind of get these acts to come over and play manipulate?
Yeah, so there's like a dual yeah, so for I guess for film, and I didn't mention any film highlights, so I'm going to do that as well in a minute. But
Yeah, yeah.
for film, I guess we're just watching as many films as we can, and we work with partner festivals for recommendations and find things. But the great thing about film is you can watch at home.
Yeah.
With international performance, yeah, we attend sort of a range of different festivals over the year and try and budgets are tight, so we try and find the places where we're going to see the most critical mass of quality work. And then the third thing, of course, is looking at our own internal talent development strands,
Yeah.
and what exciting Scottish work is kind of bubbling through and what looks promising. So, of the 5 productions at this year's festival that are Scottish, 4 of them have come through our own talent
Right.
development strands. And so we've kind of nurtured and supported them at different points in their journey. Maybe we write a letter of support to a funder, maybe we give some seed funding to help it develop. So that's an important part of it too.
So you mentioned film there. Are there some film highlights that you think would be worth mentioning?
Yeah, so I'm really excited. Obviously, the Scottish Animation Award comes with a programme. So there's a programme of Scottish shorts, which are all, as I say, some of the most exciting ones from the last 3 years. So I'd really recommend that. And we also have an animated documentaries programme this year, which I think is such an interesting genre
Yeah.
of how you take in something that is non-fiction. And so you would essentially imagine you're trying to get as close to truth or as far away from a kind of creative, fictionalized portrayal as possible, and actually using these kind of animated forms to explore it. And there's a lot of interesting research on how animation can kind of bring difficult or uncomfortable ideas to life, or
Yeah.
even in places where it's not possible or safe for
Yeah.
filmmakers to kind of tell their stories and directly. Animation helps. So I think there's some really gorgeous films in that program. And then lastly, we have Don Hertzfeldt double bill. So Don Hertzfeldt's this amazing experimental animator from the States, whose film It's Such a Beautiful Day. It was released in 2012 and sort of took the world by storm. It's a sort of nihilist, existential film centered around a stick man who's
Okay.
sort of questioning the world. But it celebrates, as much as it celebrates, highlights, I guess, the meaningless of life, it also looks at the kind of beauty in all the individual moments. And it's a bit of a cult classic, and for good reason. So, yeah, there's lots to look forward to.
And have you seen the kind of landscape of puppetry and animation change over the years that you've been involved with Manipulate?
I think so. I mean, I I think with any art form, it can be possible to kind of for some people within the sector to almost try and close doors a bit, like to protect the art form, to protect integrity of it, to protect fenced funding. And I have seen that tendency maybe in puppetry start to relax a bit. I think that people have started to realize that some of the most exciting things happen when art forms come together or when new voices come into this sector. So if you look at the five Scottish productions, some of those are artists who you wouldn't necessarily always see working in these disciplines and maybe
Yeah.
have made their reputation in other parts of the performance landscape and are now seeing these art forms and seeing their potential for storytelling. And so I really welcome that kind of openness. And, Manipulate stands a bit unusually from the international puppetry world as championing all these distinct disciplines at once, right? We have circus, we have physical theatre, we have mime, object theatre. We consider it all part of a spectrum of like animated forms and visually led work. And I increasingly see more international festivals doing a similar thing because the definition of what puppetry is grows, knowing that that helps to reach a broader audience, knowing that it explodes the artistic potential of the work. And that's really exciting to me.
And I mean, we've mentioned puppetry and film, but then you mentioned circus. And again, that's something which people might have a preconception about what that means. But what are
Yes.
examples in this year's programme of performance like that?
Yeah, so we have Sadiq's show that I mentioned, and we also have a new show by a Scottish-based French artist called Ninon Noire, called The Raft of the Crab. She's also a Chinese pole artist, but she is combining puppetry with circus skills. So I don't know how she does it. I mean, I've just been to see her in rehearsal, and she's like a one-woman amazing sort of person, but she's working with Gavin Glover on puppetry and she will be manipulating puppets while on the pole, while delivering text. And I think she's really just showing that all of these forms together can create something really special. But what's exciting about this generation of circus artists that Nino and Sadiq belong to is that they are working with narrative in a different way, I think, than historically circus has. So you're looking really more at that circus theatre that sits in an in-between place. And there's different conventions with audiences because pure circus audiences are used to clapping after every kind of trick and a lot of it is about the discipline and the kind of skills. And we're moving into a space where actually, like narratively, emotionally, it might not be appropriate to applaud every time. So it's also just trying to embrace that audiences are coming from different places and that it's all allowed in a way.
And in terms of Manipulate Arts, is it all about the festival, or what else are you doing at other times of the year?
So as I say, we have long had three strands of work to our organisation. That is the public presentation, which really primarily is through the festival,
Yeah.
community engagement and talent development. And this year we were really looking to bring some of those things closer together. But of course, nothing stops once the festival's done. So we have seed funding programs for talent development. We have networking events, producing surgeries, all these things for professional artists to develop their practice. Similarly, we have our Captivate programme, which is a community engagement programme taking place in three parts of Scotland. So we currently work in Western Edinburgh with Whale Arts and in Caithness with Lithe Arts, and we're going to announce a new Captivate partnership soon. So that work will take place all through 2026. But with all the work we do, we're just looking to sort of break down the boundaries between those things a little and provide opportunities for participation where you might not have seen it before, or talent development where you might not have seen it before. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I guess that is important because we've talked a lot about the festival and how it's based in Edinburgh, but a lot of the work you do is reaching out to other areas of Scotland as well.
Yeah, and for that reason, we went totally online in the 2021 festival necessarily because of COVID.
Yeah.
And for that reason, we have kept our film programme particularly still online. And people have told us that that helps them to connect with the festival, but they're based in the Highlands, or maybe they have a disability or access reason why they can't come out to the cinema. So it feels important for us to keep emphasising that we're not just an Edinburgh organisation, we're a Scottish organisation.
Don, I think we should remind people once again where they can find out what's on and where they can get tickets or how they can get tickets.
Of course. So we will be running from the 4th to the 10th of February in the city of Edinburgh, all across the city of Edinburgh, and online. Everything, all the information about the festival is on our website, which is manipulatearts.co.uk, and all our Manipulate Festival and Manipulate Arts socials channels. You can also pick up one of these, which they're in all of our venues all around the city of Edinburgh, and the digital version of this is online.
So that's the program. That's the actual physical copy of the program. Yeah.
Program, yes.
Excellent.
And yes, for booking tickets, it's with the individual venue box offices. But if in any doubt, start on our website and then you can kind of direct where you need to be from there.
Fantastic. Dawn, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and hear about just what Manipulate is up to and the upcoming festival. So thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me.
Likewise. Thanks, Alistair.
And we'll be back soon with someone completely different.